And the key issue here, I think, is a vacuum of leadership. I mean, if you remember Susan Lee's first speech at the press club, it was a massive apology and a promise to spend the next 12 months conducting countless reviews. No wonder they've got dissension in the ranks. There's a vacuum of leadership at the top.
Well, I think that was one of the big takeouts of Jame Macpherson's speech. Now, remember, he may be young, but he's one of the smartest cookies in that team. And I don't mean to say that. In saying that, I don't mean that, it's a low bar. He's actually a very, very polished performer. And he's saying you can't keep going like this. You've got to start arguing a case. And I think, when people say there's a division in the Liberal Party between the so-called moderates, that's a misnomer, because it implies the right of the party are crazies. They're not. Those people of the so-called, moderates, the left of the party, are people who tend not to dare to argue a point. And you see that with their opposition to scrapping the net zero targets. I don't hear them saying, we've got to stick with net zero targets because it will change the climate for the better. It's worth the money. It's going to make life much easier. We're going to have fewer fires. We're going to have fewer heat waves. They don't say that. What they say is, if we don't do that, people will vote against us. Well, the point is, how about you argue the toss? And if your arguments are sound, and if you argue them properly, and if you argue them with intelligence, hopefully, as with The Voice, you will change public opinion.
Absolutely. Well, Jame Macpherson made some suggestions. He said the Liberals need to engage in the culture wars. They should not vacate that space. But he also warned against looking to Farage or to Trump for inspiration. I'm curious as to what you made of that.
Well, considering both Farage and Trump Trump has won an election and Farage is so far ahead, he might have the biggest landslide in our lifetime, the way he's going. I think if you followed some of the things he's saying, you might not be in the shtuck as the Liberals are now. But I think his point is this, that you can't just lazily copy a policy that works overseas and neglect the local conditions right here. That's one. And second is, you can't just go with one or two and ignore the big thing that people tend to vote for most of all, and that is economic leadership. And also a sense of unity, which the Liberals didn't have. A leadership, conviction, and a plan to help people have better, richer lives. That was missing in the Liberals last time. It's not a big secret. And I think you do need to put the grunt work in. You can't just be poll chasers, whether you're on the left or the right.
Well, Andrew, while the Liberals are trying to work out what they believe in, the Nationals are daring to dream. They've worked out, I think they need 7 Liberals to defect, and they would become the official opposition. David Littleproud this afternoon was telling journalists he would gladly welcome any Liberal MPs who wanted to jump ship. Not exactly helpful. Well,
it's an implied threat. The Liberals have got 28 MPs in the lower house. The Nationals have got 15, so 7 Liberals just need to say, oh, look, I'm going to sit with the Nationals instead, and they become the main party, the opposition. When you think that one of them is Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price, who already was sitting with the Nationals before she jumped to the Liberals, it's not that hard an ask if the Liberals keep going in this mess. But I think it was more a threat, a warning to Susan Lee to get the ship in order, otherwise she could face real trouble.
Liberal luminary Philip Ruddock, he's put his 2 cents worth in. He might as well, everybody else is. He's made a public plea for the coalition to ignore the concerns of MPs like the one you just mentioned, Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price and Andrew Hastie, on migration policy. He's written in The Australian, "To my friends in the coalition, I would say this: never forget multiculturalism is not a Labor invention. It's rooted in the Liberal tradition of individual freedom and opportunity. Inclusion has always been part of our story. When we retreat into fear or suspicion, we betray that inheritance." Now, Andrew, bearing in mind polling consistently shows a majority of Australians are concerned about the level of migration, Is that good advice from Ruddock for Susan Lee?
No, it's shocking advice, muddled thinking from a man I like, who showed some courage as a former immigration minister himself. Multiculturalism is two things, and he should define his terms for a start. One is look, we come from different cultures. Big news, right? That's not really the issue. The other is that multiculturalism is a government program to encourage our differences and even finance the differences, which I think is a really big mistake. The emphasis should be on finding what unites us. But here, Philip Ruddock is totally reinventing the liberal tradition, right? Oh, look, like you right now think that multiculturalism is a liberal invention, you know, and we're going to betray it if we start worrying about people's deep concerns and genuine concerns about Australia not being a country that we recognise anymore or feel at home in, with your jihadists in the street, the Labor Party changing our whole attitude towards Israel on the basis of, we've got to placate an almost implacable Muslim community. This is a real concern. Now, Philip Ruddock should remember that the longest serving leader, the longest serving Prime Minister the Liberals have produced is Sir Robert Menzies. Sir Robert Menzies actually, like the Labor Party, backed the White Australia policy. And what he said was, we should be very concerned about being a homogeneous society, not a multicultural one. He didn't say that. He said homogeneous. As an interview said, homogeneous society, to avoid the problems we see back then in South Africa, well, we see them now too, America, and he said increasingly in Britain. Hasn't that come to play? Who would have thought, we had people that thought that backed Hamas in Australia. So he made that point. Now, the Liberals have gone from one extreme, the White Australia policy, to another extreme, thinking, there is no culture that we should rely on, that we should hope that people subscribe to, the culture that was built essentially by British immigrants and the institutions we have. I think there's a deep, deep concern that this Australia is fragmenting. And for Philip Ruddock to say, to acknowledge that is to betray the liberal tradition, A, it's false, that is not the liberal tradition, and B, we're supposed to tell Australians, hey, listen, your concerns are illegitimate, put the blinkers on, all's good, just keep going.
It's a very good point. Andrew, we've got to go to a break, but before we do, obviously viewers are aware that you're recovering from fairly major surgery. You look great, you sound fantastic. I've got to ask, because I know people will be wanting an update from you. How are you feeling?
Well, I want to say two things. I want to thank so much, I should have done it before, all the many, many viewers who have wished me well, given me advice and lit candles for me and the whole thing. I'm so grateful to you. And if prayer does anything, it seems to have worked a bit in my case. I feel a lot stronger. I'm still quite tired and all that, which has hampered my return a bit. But I'd like to say tonight, and this is a promise I'm going to underline, Monday week I'm going to be back. Monday week I am going to be back, come hell or high water. I think I just heard my wife scream. No, I am going to come back. And James, I'd also like to thank you very, very much for the brilliant job you are doing. You've been rewarded in the ratings. I've sent you lots of texts to that effect. You've done a fantastic job, but I'm getting frustrated about not having my say, and I will be back Monday week.
Well, Andrew, it's been a privilege to fill in for you, and I'm sure people will be thrilled to have you back as soon as you're able. Thanks for coming on the program tonight.